Oh, hey guys, and welcome. Tonight's broadcast. I know last time we did a more software-oriented stream. I think this time we're going to focus more on hardware, which actually bring up the poll there. So tonight what I want to focus on more is what are the components critical to streaming and what's more of the more decorative pieces that people get just to make their computers look better. I don't think TX Bone is going to be joining us tonight, but I do have tonight a good friend of mine, Stryker. He works for ASUS as a technical engineer, so he should be able to answer quite a few of the questions that you may or may not have. Oh, there he is.
Hi, I'm late.
Alright, so this is Stryker. This is our Adama.
Here are your derps for the night. Enjoy.
Yes. Actually, give me just a second. Brandon TX is going to be joining us tonight.
I did nothing. Don't look at me. It's okay when Reaper's streaming alone. I'll do this.
Yeah,
Just kind of come out of the middle and be like, floating hand.
and I think I actually try to do something serious with this. But Stryker is our TeamSpeak's resident hardware expert. Oops, wrong room.
How old are these tricks, awesome babe?
Hey, Reaper.
Hello.
I'm gonna toss
Sorry
her
it took me so long, man.
Sorry it took me so long,
fine.
man. That mission I was doing ran me
more than
much
I thought.
longer than what I thought.
When we get, like, on Sundays, it's usually so I usually...
There we go, I got voice activation on. Alright, TX, if you're watching the stream, the guy next to me is Stryker. He's Adama's resident hardware expert. So any questions that you or your viewers may have, he probably can answer.
Awesome, that sounds great.
Awesome, that sounds great.
So like I was saying when I started out, and as I've told you previously, I wanted to focus more on the hardware that's critical to streaming compared to what people think might be important but actually isn't. So
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
one.
that's a good one because
Honestly, I think the
most important piece of hardware that you
can have,
can have,
my opinion,
this is
your
just my
CPU.
opinion, is your CPU.
Because my God.
Because my God.
you want to chime in on that?
Well, for the most part, yes. But depending on your system, the GPU may actually be a better route. But yeah, 9 out of 10 times with majority of people, the CPU is going to be the way to go.
And now
That
what?
makes sense.
That makes sense.
Now
I
what?
will say
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
at least with OBS,
They recently released that encoder that will encode off your graphics card. It won't work for me. I mean, I have an AMD graphics card and it just won't.
do it.
It won't
Yeah,
do
the
it.
AMD doesn't have the encoding chip in there. I recently just brought over one of my old 970s that I had spare. Reaper has it in his machine right now, so it's actually fully compatible with the encoding on there directly from the graphics card now.
That would be really nice.
That would be really
My
nice
CPU
because
is
my
total
CPU is a total potato.
So like with his system, and granted, yes, he can stream as we all know with Twitch and everything with the CPU, but now that he has that 970 with the streaming capability with the onboard encoding chip, he can take all that stress off the CPU and put it directly on the GPU and have little to almost no performance impact whatsoever.
Really.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
That would be living.
that would be living the
So
dream.
with that in mind, if you were to kind of balance in between, okay, I got to upgrade one component on my PC between the CPU and possibly a GPU with the encoding chip, which would probably be the more beneficial way to go.
More than likely, it's generally going to be the CPU overall. Even with your system with the 970, you still need a CPU itself that can handle both the gaming draw call commands and any additional tasks. Because the CPU can't keep up. It doesn't matter what graphics card you have; it's just not going to put out. But I know with the benefit to the NVIDIA technology, having that strong processor overall is going to help out with the overall performance, and then having the NVIDIA technology in there with the newer cards just adds, that sweet icing layer on top.
I just need to win the lottery.
I just need to win the lottery.
I think we all do.
I mean, I was planning on bringing this card, the Reaper, months ago when they announced the 10 series, because I recently just picked up the 1070. I was waiting for a 1080, but prices are still sky high on those things. And after months, I finally broke down, picked up the 1070 to replace my two 970s, and honestly, I'm actually happy with it. So, I mean, to be honest, I was surprised how much performance gain I personally saw going from the 970 SOI to the 1070 on a 1440p display. I mean, it was pretty phenomenal.
And that's kind of something I want to touch on too. You see a lot of the higher end gaming computers with 2, 3, as many graphic cards they can jam pack in that case. What are the benefits of having multiple GPUs compared to just one, or even one that is better than the 2 or 3 they got in there already?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it's actually a question that I wanted to discuss with you. You hear the word SLI thrown around a lot, and there's actually a picture of a lot of the cables that generally come in with the GPU packages. And I'm sure, like you've explained to me before, you can actually have one of your graphics cards rendering for your stream and one just rendering the game. That way you're not overloading just one card. Now, what would adding an SLI cable do?
Running the SOI, just the cable, won't do anything unless you enable it. Now, let's say if you're streaming with the GPU itself, as we were testing out earlier today, and you're running SOI, then essentially it kind of works off, one card is still going to be the dedicated encoder. Kind of like how PhysX works. PhysX only works on a single graphics card, even if you have 2, 3, or 4 graphics cards in SOI. It just picks one of those cards, and it's the designated card. Nowadays, with how modern technology is, I would 99% of the time I would tell people not to go with SOI nowadays, especially with the way current software programming is going, DirectX 12, Vulkan, and how powerful modern GPUs are. It's generally not beneficial. And I mean, even with my 970s, it was, I got proof right there. 2 970s are not keeping up with the single 1080, and it's just that big of a difference.
I have a viewer actually
that has a
Sorry,
question. Sorry, did I stop you in the middle of your sentence?
I already know kind of how I feel about this,
but he says he wants to know if he should get a new CPU. He currently has an i5 4670K 3.4 gigahertz, but he feels like it's not doing the work.
I would say yes.
It really depends on which way. Most of the time, honestly, I'm probably going to say yes, because I know previous to Skylake, which is the current generation of Intel chip, the i5s are actually dual-core processors with hyper-threading. If he bumped that up to that series of i7, then he's technically running a quad-core with hyper-threading. Or if he wants to move on to where I have recently done, which is up to the Skylake series, even the i5s on the Skylakes are physical quad-core without hyper-threading. So either way he goes, whether upgrading to his generation of i7 or bumping up to a Skylake i5 or i7, it would actually make a difference, especially in gaming or even in streaming, because you got physical cores are always better than theoretical fake cores, basically.
Exactly.
Exactly. The one thing I will say though,
I guess building on that question.
I guess building on that question, if you upgrade your CPU, you probably already know this, especially if you upgrade to the i7, check and make sure that your motherboard is compatible.
Exactly, and
Because that's not always the case with those
exactly. I
i7s.
mean, that's something I run into with my job a lot because I work for a company that works directly with HP and Asus all the time. And that's something I hear from customers all the time, especially if they send their products in, anything like that. A lot of times they don't check the product on the compatibility list in the manual or on the website. They don't make sure it works. They kind of give you an idea of it, more on the AMD side. Is, you know, you'll go and get like an 8350 8-core processor from them, and then they got those new, you know, not new, but overclocked 9000 series. Only very specific motherboards have the capability of using those processors. And it's the same thing with Intel. Not all motherboards support all those processors.
Exactly.
But with the regards to upgrading, either path you go, whether you go Skylake or just jumping up to that 4th generation i7, either way it would actually be a benefit to the system overall in any regard that you're going to use it. But beyond that, I would definitely look at the motherboard specifications, make sure it actually supports that processor, or at least find an i7 that is supported by it.
Well, and he just asked,
which we were talking about it earlier, if you should upgrade from a GTX 970 to a 1070, which, yes.
Yes,
you
100%, because like I was just mentioning, I was running 970 SOI, and I saw a huge difference. Yeah, and again, I'm running 1440p on the highest graphics that you can push on my system, and even then, it made that big of a difference. Now, going from 1080p resolution, you may not see that big of a jump, but at the higher resolutions, higher gaming settings, it is a huge difference in performance.
So what I'm going to do here,
I'm going to send you my address. Feel free just to box up that machine and send it to me. That sounds awesome.
But, I mean, my system's been years in the works. I mean, I was originally AMD. I ran AMD for years, but once I got to a certain point where I was running 1440p or, you know, the highest settings possible while trying to do streaming and things of that nature, the AMD just couldn't keep up anymore, and I was forced to finally swap over to Intel, so...
Gotcha.
Well, and I'm kind of the same way, and I'm at that same point where pretty much everything in my PC is AMD, but it's just not keeping up. So as soon as I'm able to, I'm planning on upgrading my motherboard and my CPU to an Intel i7. Hopefully soon.
I mean, that would definitely be the way to go nowadays. We've all been waiting on the rumors of the Intel Zen processors for years now, and it looks like we're finally on the verge of maybe coming out, but, you know, it's always better just to get, you know, the good hardware today than wait potentially months or years for a, you know, something that may or may not work as advertised come out later, so.
Right.
Yes, lady, you can't vote on King's behalf. I already know the answer, but go ahead. Now, I know, like, we went to PAX East not too long ago, and there were systems on there that were just, you know, just amazed by how beautiful they looked. And I know that they probably could have the capabilities that a lot of the most high-end computers could have. But, you know, one of the things that you were talking about earlier with me is, that's a picture of the 3D graphics cards.
Useless nowadays.
Yeah. Okay, right here. We're talking about liquid cooling.
Yeah, the custom loops.
Like I say, like the setup you got, you basically have a huge ass radiator set up with 2 fans pushing air through. That's actually outperforming, or at least, you know, performing the same as a setup like this, which, you know, most people would, you know, mouth with water just looking at it. But is that something that is critical, or not necessarily critical, but important if you're going to push your computer that far?
Honestly, my personal opinion with the custom water loops nowadays, now back with older hardware, yes, it would have made a major difference if you were willing to spend the time and money to get it done right. But with current technology, it's more of an aesthetic thing more than anything else. Unless you're trying to break world records with with overclocking records and stuff, that's really the only reason why I would see doing it. But for the most part nowadays, it's more aesthetics more than anything else. Because everything's so energy efficient now, especially on the NVIDIA side and Intel processors, it really doesn't make that big of a difference unless you're just really pushing really high-end voltage overclocking.
Right, especially with, the 900 series, 1000 series, where your power usage is literally dropped at least half, if not more. Well, that does look like a damn good PC.
Yeah, it is pretty.
Sorry guys, keep going.
Sorry, guys. Keep going.
No, I'm just admiring the picture.
So my viewer,
He's got the i5 4670K 3.4 gigahertz CPU and then the GTX 970 graphics card.
He says as of right now he can upgrade one but not both.
So what would you think would be his best bet to upgrade now? Where he could get his best performance gain.
Between the two, honestly, it'd be very hard to say. I mean, processor-wise, you're not really going to get that big of a jump even going to a Skylake from that processor. To be honest, I would probably lean more towards the graphics card itself, going more for like a GTX 1070. If you go with a 1060... you're going to see somewhat comparable, maybe a little bit better performance than what you have, but to have a noticeable performance, you're probably going to go with the actual graphics card. But other than that, again, it also comes down to the game and the game engine. Some games will run perfectly fine on that i5 with it being a dual-core hyper-threaded. But then there's just some games that go, I don't like this one.
Right.
So,
That game for me is The Division. I can play it. I cannot.
yeah, it's
stream
like
it.
that or playing Arma 2 or Arma 3, these very, very CPU-bound games. Something along those lines, or maybe like some of the Skyrim games as well. A lot of those, I would probably lean more towards the processor upgrade, because that would benefit you more. But the majority of games nowadays are more bound to the GPU. In which the 1070 would go. So overall, it's kind of balanced how he has it. But either way he goes, it would be a benefit. It just really comes down to the type of games they're playing, really.
Actually,
I think he might have nailed it on the head because he says that he wishes he could play Arma 2 and 3 smoother. So if that's the case, then you might lean towards
Yeah,
the
if you're
CPU.
talking more those types of games, I would really, really look into the CPU upgrade. The graphics card is not going to do very much. That game is very, very harsh on the CPU. Even my system struggles even today with Arma. It's partially due to how the game code works. I mean, it's not very well optimized, and you're just brute forcing it most of the time. So,
Right. Cool.
And King Gamer, I know you. I know your computer is not a 7. On a scale of 1 to 7, it's maybe a 2. About one step up from a potato, if that.
it's two potatoes. You move his
Yeah.
monitor to the side, and you get the cables plugged right into two potatoes.
That's basically what I'm running
here. Mine has a little bit. I got the tinfoil upgrade a couple months ago, but other than that.
Now, you get that pointing away or towards the screen?
No,
I've got a decent graphics card. I have the RAM and all that. I just have a really shitty AMD CPU, and it hurts.
By chance, know which one you're running?
F.
Is it one of those little APUs, or is it an actual FX processor? Yeah, I'm making him look now.
So that's a lot of the problem with today's games is now that Steam is being flooded with so many of these early access games that people are just throwing out there. They have no idea what they're doing. They're just kind of slapping a game together, putting on Steam, early access. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But even if they are good, being early access, you're playing all these games that are just horribly coded. 7 days.
I know.
Arma.
Yeah, I know. Like some of the other ones, like even Space Engineers, for the longest time, it ran like garbage. I mean, depending on what you were doing, but most of the time it ran like garbage, and it's mostly because of the coding on the back end. It just wasn't optimized to be able to be coded and handled by the CPU properly. That's why when you see these AAA titles, for the most part, other than certain games like the new Batman and everything, they run very, very well. I mean, most of these games are almost comparable, when you're playing on the console to the PC to some extent. And that's mostly because of how much development has gone into the optimization of the actual code itself. It's able to run so much more efficiently with less actual instructions.
And yes, Arc was horrible for a while. Horrible.
Arc, it's still horrible.
That's a lot better than it was.
Yeah.
Like even my system, I actually have to run it from 1440p. I have to crank it down to 720p resolution. Sometimes 1080 depending on what frame rates I want, but generally 720 resolution at like maybe 70-75% scaling. Most of the settings are cranked almost all the way down just to get a frame rate above 60. If I want to sit about 30 to 60 depending on what's happening, okay, I'll bump it up to 1080p.
Yeah. I'm happy if I get 20 or 30.
But I mean, that's just a lot of people have played Ark. I mean, it is a very popular game for a while, and any person who's played it will tell you, I try to turn up the settings, it just doesn't want to move. But I mean, that's just to show you that even if you have great hardware, if the development behind it is not up to par, it doesn't matter how strong your system is, it's just not going to handle it just because of the game.
Link to the poll is on the BrainBot portal. So if you go to brainbot.com/reapergrim, go down to my dashboard is going to be different than a viewer's. It's going to be somewhere on screen or polls, somewhere along that line. SLI 970s, but I don't always run an SLI. Should I be?
Let's see. I have SLI 970s. For the most part, I would normally say run an SOI, but again, it also comes down to the type of games you play. If you play a lot of early access games or betas and alphas, 9 out of 10 times it's not even going to use the SOI even if you have it enabled. Most of the time, even with my system, I left SOI enabled 24/7. I never turned it off unless I had a major problem with a game. And major meaning I couldn't even load and play it. But majority of the time, if the game does not support it or the NVIDIA drivers does not support it as a profile, it's just going to run in single card mode anyways, regardless. Now, there are some rare occasions that running SOI in a supported SOI title will actually net you less frame rates than running a single card. And that's just poor programming on that end, unfortunately. But, I mean, just from me personally running SOI over the last couple systems I had, if you're still running it, just leave it enabled unless you run into some major problem with it. So
I actually got a picture. Yeah, that's the SLA enabled with 3 cards put together.
yeah, the person was a little...
Is that a little bit overkill?
They got creative because they did not go out and actually purchase a 3-way bridge, so they created their own 3-way bridge. Sadly enough, with my Sabertooth board for the AMD 8350, I was going to go with triple cards on that, even though the specifications does not say it doesn't indicate 3-way at all, but I know that the board can actually handle it. I mean, it's there. It's designed to be able to do it. The thing is that the spacing on how the cards are spaced out on that Sabertooth board on those AMDs from Asus, the top 2 cards have a card size gap in between them, and then the third card is butted right up against the other one. So it's 2 stacked together, and then a third one with a large gap. And finding that type of bridge is almost impossible to find. So what this person did with their system is basically what I was going to try to do with mine. Until I, smacked myself in the head and said, no, just go with the 970s.
Which brings up another good point. Trying to add multiple GPUs can sometimes be a beneficial good thing, but at the same time, if you get them so close together that there's no airflow at all, you're going to just burn them up.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's an example with my current system. Why I upgraded to the Intel with the 1070 is because with a lot of boards I had in the past running SOI, my boards have always natively had that gap, that spacing in between the cards where I can still slide a third card in between. It's that big of a gap. Never had a problem with thermals, never had a problem with sound, everything was nice. Problem I ran into is the newer board that I picked up is a Maximus 8 Gene. It's one of the Micro ATX boards. The only one that they have that supports SOI as far as I'm aware. I got that before I upgraded the graphics cards. And I put them in, thought it was all going to be fine. Nope, top card ran pegged out at 85 degrees at all times, idled at about 60, 65, and the fans are blowing at 100%. And you can't fit a credit card in between them. So that's why I personally moved up to the 1070. I was not expecting a performance gain. I was happy with the performance I was receiving, the majority of titles I was playing, and a lot of things I was doing. I was getting irritated by the high temperatures, the thermal throttling that was happening because of those temperatures on that top card, because when one card starts to slow down, it slows down all your cards simultaneously. And when that top card starts overheating, it slows down, the fans are ramped up at 100% when no airflow, so the fans are amplified in sound at that point. And I'm hearing it through my case on a headset. So, that's what... that's what broke me down to ditch the two 970s, to go back to a single card. Because overall, the single card, as long as you get a good, powerful single card, I know people have said this time and time again, it's always better to get a single, more powerful card over a cheaper 2 or 3 cards. There's so many benefits to that. And it's rare that you ever come across a program or a game that can properly use those cards the way they were designed in multiple layouts. I mean, you even look at NVIDIA nowadays with their 10 series and how their practices are with SOI. They've completely abandoned anything above 2 cards. And at this point, they have very limited support for two-way at this point. I mean, they're leaving it on the developers to choose whether they want to encode for it or not. So, I mean, and that's kind of a sign when the card manufacturers moving away from multiple GPUs. There's something to look into that, what's the reason? It's because 9 out of 10 times it's not beneficial.
I would agree with that. I had a pretty... Mine was a completely different problem, issues with overheating and shit like that, and that's not good. If you can avoid it, do it. Mine, I had too many components and not enough airflow, and it caused a pretty big problem.
I mean, to kind of put it in perspective, with how hot those cards are running in that close of proximity, keep in mind, I'm running 1440p resolution. I'm pushing game graphics up to the epic level, so I'm putting a lot of stress on those cards. A huge amount of stress, more than what the average person is going to be doing. And that is going to generate a lot of heat. And I'm running a full-size tower crammed in there. I think it's like 9 or 10 120mm fans just blowing everywhere. It's like a tornado going off in that thing. And even then, in the summer, in the summertime, just this past summer, before I upgraded my cards, I actually had to remove the side panel and put a box fan up against it because it just was not enough air cooling going through to keep them cards down.
Yeah, Scooter, I looked at Stryker's 1440 monitor, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, it's that Acer Predator. It's beautiful.
I wish I can get some of those.
Oh, man.
No, that sweet 1440p, 144 hertz with G-Sync. Yeah, the whole $700-800 that burned out of my pocket overnight.
Holy shit, man! Talk dirty.
Talk dirty to me.
Oh, I will say, I love that monitor. It is phenomenal. I mean, just the image quality alone, the color recreation, the level, the type of IPS that they're using, for the contrast. It is beautiful. I mean, I've owned a lot of monitors over the years. I've gone cheap. I've gone kind of mid, high range. Personally, I've never had a monitor that had an image as nice and as beautiful as what this monitor can put out. And even the ROG monitor from Asus, if you can get past some of the problems that some people have with it, with the issues with screens and stuff, literally it's the same exact panel as the Acer. They're the exact same. They're from the same manufacturer, and even then, I mean, this panel is just beautiful. I just can't beat it. I mean, I know the other week we were playing 7 Days to Die together, and there was a point where it was the middle of the night, zombies running around, we're hunkered down in a small little, hut that I had thrown up, and, Lady Grimm, she's in there with me, and we open up the side door where the furnace and stuff is, there's no lights, it's pitch black in there. She's looking, and she can see everything, it's kind of like the game has turned up a bit. She could see the walls and everything. I turned to look at it and it was like, looks like a black hole. So, I mean, that's just how good the contrasting and everything is on this. I had lamps and stuff around me, but looking through that door, it was like my monitor was turned off. That's how nice it is. When I play games like Dark Souls and stuff, yeah, it's hard to see, but, that's also how the developers designed it. I mean, they develop games on this type of quality equipment, and that's how they want it to be presented. So, it's part of the atmosphere.
Yeah, you're playing,
if you're playing like that, I mean, you're playing the game the way it was meant to be
You
played.
paid $625 for the same monitor? Damn.
I think he probably got it on sale. I got mine closer to when they first originally came out, not immediately. Because I think they were a bit more expensive than that when they first came out. But yeah, you definitely paid less than I did.
And Legrams, Tropical 4, what settings should I be able to run on, not on GeForce Experience?
Let's see, with Tropical 4?
It's our responsibility as gamers to buy the equipment meant for gamers.
I mean, it'd be... I don't know, it normally should have, low, medium, high. I would probably go with high with the system that you have in there right now. And see how that performs. I mean, it's not going to be that demanding of a game. I mean, it can be, but for the most part, it's not.
And that kind of brings up a question for me. How beneficial it is to let a software such as GeForce Experience to dictate what settings your game should be at compared to, what you're comfortable with. Say, you fire up GeForce, it says, optimize game for me. You click OK. You go in there. Sometimes the game runs good. Sometimes it runs like shit. How accurate or how reliable should... Let's see, how can I put this?
It's a good question because I know how.
It's a good question because I know how I feel about the AMD one.
How much you rely on software like that to pick the settings for you?
Before I get into that direct question, like you were talking about the AMD version, I've used both. And there is a very big difference in how both are used. AMD's version is used by a combination of internal testing, which isn't too much, and cloud-based. What is other people using and what type of frame rates are they getting that the software is recording and reporting. So they kind of do a mixture of, they do some in-house testing, but the bulk of it is, user testing basically. What are other people getting versus these with these settings?
Now, is that using the exact same specifications for your computer or just in general for the game?
It's, as far as I'm aware, it's supposed to match a similar type of specification. So it looks at other people who have similar hardware as you do, or at least similar performing hardware, and tries to see what other people's settings are and what frame rates they're getting, and that's more or less how it dictates it. To where NVIDIA does it a very different way. They do a lot of internal. It's almost 100% purely internal testing with a large range of hardware. And what NVIDIA Experience does is that optimum setting tries to give you a guaranteed, almost guaranteed 45 frames a second or better depending on your hardware. A lot of times I would probably say if you're not too familiar with changing settings and what does this, what does that, most of the time something like GeForce Experience or the Raptor software for AMD is probably going to be your way to go, because you got the little toggles for high performance or high quality. That's something to go to. Someone like myself, I use GeForce Experience with my system, but I don't take those settings to heart with my setup. Because with mine, I'm running a 1440p, and when Nvidia says I should be playing with, say, probably going to get crucified by this, but, World of Warcraft, at 100% maxed out settings, 1440p at 200% scaling resolution with anti-aliasing cranked up to 16 times MSAA. I'm like, no. No, I'm turning off anti-aliasing.
I mean, that's a good way to make your computer
Yeah.
explode.
But, I've actually ran that setting, and, for the most part, in that game, my game will run about 45, 60 frames a second until I hit, load up into a city, and it wants to kind of die on me. But take those settings as a grain of salt. They're kind of a way for people who don't really know what they're doing or just getting into PC gaming to have a very quick go-to for certain games that have optimum settings already, and adjust from there. Me personally, I don't live by those settings. I will apply those settings initially, and then I will tweak certain things like anti-aliasing stuff, things like that. I will turn off. Certain settings like shadows, I may turn down 1 or 2 notches. I mean, I love the shadows, they're beautiful, but out of all the graphic settings, shorts of anti-aliasing, shadows is the #1 biggest performance killer of anything. And
That's where I always go first if I'm
That's
having
where I
trouble.
always go
Shadows
first
and
if I'm having trouble.
anti-aliasing.
Shadows
exactly,
and
I'll turn
anti-aliasing.
all those off. I'll turn shadows down 1 or 2 notches depending on how my performance gets. And from there, I just kind of play it. And if I'm still not satisfied, I'll start knocking a couple more things down. But the NVIDIA experience and the Raptor software, for the most part, for people who somewhat understand what they're doing or, more than that, it gives you a baseline. What should your system be able to handle for this type of frame rate? And if you're looking for better performance or a more stable number, then you can drop certain settings lower and you're good.
Plus, as you fire it up, see what happens. If the quality of it sucks, then you can always turn it down.
Yeah.
But just start from there.
But at the same time, don't take it to heart either. I mean, even on my AMD system, when I ran that with the 8350 with the two 970s on it, I fired up Battlefield 4, right? I know personally I can crank that thing to 100% anti-aliasing maxed out, and I was running 3-way monitors at the time. Which again, I'm going to state, don't do that. Sucks. But other than that, I was running triple monitor gaming at the time. I was running two 970s on the 8350. Wasn't the best experience, but it worked. But even Battlefield 4, I was able to max everything except for the scaling resolution. And it was perfect, 60, 90 frames a second, sometimes higher. And, but here's the problem. I ran NVIDIA Experience, and NVIDIA wanted to say I should put everything, single monitor, 1080p, at the lowest possible settings in the game with anti-aliasing cranked up out the roof. So, take it with a grain of salt when you use those settings, and, just try them. If they're not to your liking, start dabbling with the settings. I mean, you're not going to learn until you start adjusting them, so...
That is a good point. You always want to, when you start out trying to adjust things, you just want to make sure you do one at a time so you know exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how I would adjust my games. I mean, a lot of times for me nowadays, knowing the type of system hardware I have, my first default go-to is the highest setting. What is that max ultra button, or what is the highest thing I can just slap it on? I don't care if I get low for frame rates or not. I just want to see how far can I push it. And most of the time it works out fine. But other than that, I'll take one setting, I'll crank it from highest to lowest. How big of an impact did that make? I'll go through, see what different settings do, and different people have different preferences. Like one of our buddies that play with us, who's Bally. He hates shadows in games. He will literally go into any game, and if it has an off option, it's turned off. No shadows. If it doesn't, it's the low option. Simple as that. That's his default.
I don't know, my default is always anti-aliasing.
Yeah.
I always turn that off first most. Shadows, I kind of like the effect of shadows make in a game. So if it does make an impact, I'll turn it down a little bit, but I don't want to get rid of it completely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but it also depends on the game. I mean, if you notice your game has like the NVIDIA HBO Plus and stuff like that, normally I would recommend not using those specialized AMD or NVIDIA settings. Keep those turned off. Because a lot of times, yes, you get a lot of eye candy, but it comes at a massive performance hit a lot of the times. I mean, you look at like Witcher 3 when it came out, and even today, you start turning on those hairworks and everything. Yeah, goodbye to your frame rates. But I mean, honestly, it just comes down to personal preference. I mean, I would go with the software if you're not familiar with what you're doing, or even if you are familiar. At least it'll give you some settings. You can adjust them to a lower, toggle point if you want better performance out of it. And for people who know what they're doing, it gives you a baseline of what you should expect your system to do at these settings. And then you can tweak from there. It gives you a starting point, so you're not doing the bulk of the legwork.
More likely, you should always test. In order to benchmark your PC, you should typically test your components against, like, say, a AAA title compared to an indie game, because you don't know if that early access indie game, if it's the game itself, your hardware, the encoding, what it, you don't know what it could be. AAA, at least for the most part, it could be encoded properly. If you crank it up to Ultra and it sucks, then it's more likely it's just too much for your hardware.
More than likely. I mean, there are some exceptions, like, again, the last Batman came out, Arma 3. There are titles out there that, even though they're AAA productions, you're going to get bad performance, or it's a bad port from the console. But for the most part, yeah, you want to gauge your overall performance based off of a AAA title, because majority of the time they're going to run a lot better than even an indie game. I mean, well, I'm probably going to say most, 99.999% of the time it will. It's very rare I've ever come across an indie game or an early access that actually performed as good as a AAA title. But other than that, along with performance, and you have to also take into account online games as well. Single player games, you're going to have one performance metric you'll look at. In multiplayer online games, you're going to have a complete another. There's no way around that, because the server load itself is going to directly impact you. Kind of like one of the servers I run, which is Space Engineers. You go on there, you can play perfectly fine. Then one of my buddies comes in with a capital ship, slams into an asteroid. Well, nothing you can do about that. The whole server just locks up for a good 15-20 seconds and then starts stuttering for the next hour, forcing me to reboot it.
Especially when you got somebody coming in with 500 plus guns on a ship, some 10,000 plus blocks. Some the size of a planet. Whole server size trying to render, and so going, what the hell's wrong?
Yeah. So I mean, when you, and that's what I'm trying to get at, is whenever you play anything online, it doesn't matter how good your computer is. If there's something on the server side that's causing a bottleneck, unfortunately, there's nothing that you're going to be able to do about it. The best way to gauge it is from single player titles. And then because it's very, very hard to gauge and benchmark multiplayer games. That's why if you ever watch videos on YouTube or anything, it's very rare that you ever come across a multiplayer game. And if it is, it generally has a single player aspect to it. And that's generally where they're benchmarked and tested. Because there's so many unaccountable variables in multiplayer, it cannot be replicated multiple times in a row, so...
Well, TX is that about all the questions you have?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
My computer sucks. There's not a damn
My
thing I
computer
can do
sucks.
about
There's not a damn thing I can do
It takes
about
time.
I
I don't think any more of my viewers or anything have questions. I think we answered them all.
Believe me, with the computer,
Either that
believe me,
or
with the
just
computer,
gonna
it takes time. I mean, even with my system, I did not get there overnight. I mean, I spent 6-7 years building up my system, doing small intermittent upgrades when I had the money. I mean, I'm not the richest person around. I mean, anybody that truly knows me knows this. I don't have that much money. But sometimes I might have enough to go get something that's nice. Okay, maybe it's overkill for the CPU I'm running now, but when I do replace CPU, it's going to run nice.
Right.
And generally
Right,
about the time that...
Well,
Go ahead.
Well,
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say. I mean, really.
Oh, sorry. I was just
my
gonna say. I mean,
computer,
really,
I've kind of got it
my
at the
computer.
state where
I've
if I
kind of
can
got it
just
at the
replace
state
my
where if I can
CPU and
just
my
replace my
motherboard, I'm gonna be
CPU
in
and my
much better
motherboard,
shape.
I'm gonna be in much better
Yeah,
shape.
most of the time, yes. The CPU, hands down, is one of the most important components. But yeah, I mean, especially with streaming, unless you're running some type of encoding hardware like the NVIDIA or some type of external or internal coding card, yeah, I mean, CPU is going to be the way to go, especially with you streaming. That's going to be doing you more benefit than anything, because every frame that you're actually having to encode while streaming, while gaming, it's taking away from what your CPU can do for that game for all the draw call commands from the GPU. So it slows down the overall performance.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
Not for what I was gonna say. Well, generally, about what I do is, every year around tax time, that's my time to upgrade at least one component in my computer. So, 1 year I'll upgrade my CPU. Next year, maybe my GPU. Next year, it could be, expand my RAM sticks, or, just little things here or there every year that generally you can keep up with relatively little cost. Yeah, new graphics card are $600-700 for the highest ones. But you can get a pretty decent one for 400 or 500, and that could last you
Right.
2-3 years. By that time, you've already upgraded 2-3 more of your components.
Yeah. But I mean, from mentioning the different components like that, be honest with you, most people can only afford maybe one or two thing at a time. I mean, not a lot of people can go out and just dump, $2,000 on a system and at a whim, unless you want to go into credit card debt or something. But other than that, majority of people,
Yeah, sure, why not?
they're going to go and buy what they can when they can. And, it's not necessarily going to be the highest end. Most people look more towards the mid-range, on graphics cards, CPUs, because they're not looking to pay all that extra premium, because, we got bills and everything else we got to pay. There's other things that need to come first. But at the time, all I got to say is when you upgrade, it takes time when you're not rich. It definitely takes time to build up your system. I mean, my monitors I ran before this, they were 9 years old by the time I chunked them out the door. Didn't really chunk them out the door, more put them under my desk at this point. But, I mean, they were crappy little monitors. I hated them. But, it took me this long to actually want to sink the money into a monitor, because I wasn't happy with the performance of the rig itself over the years.
Which actually, something I want to bring up too. You see a lot of the higher end, top streamers. They always talk about how they have their streaming PC and their gaming PC. Generally it's possible where if you got a PC that's generally able to play a game but not game and stream, and you have another one that's just kind of sitting around, mid build, you generally can get a capture card and be able to hook both those computers up. I mean, guarantee it's going to be more of a pain in the ass to try to bounce back and forth between the two. But it is possible to basically have one set up as a streaming computer and one set up as a gaming computer.
It is possible. I have seen people do it, but it is a very big headache to maintain and set up. And be perfectly honest, I mean, my personal opinion on it, the money that you sunk into that second computer and that capture card, could have bought new components for your computer. Simple as that. Okay, your CPU's not strong enough. Why did you go dump $400 to $600 on a secondary rig? Well, there's you one of the top end processors right there.
Well, and
Actually,
what I'm thinking might happen soon.
My wife, we're going to be
soon,
upgrading
so
her
what I'm
rig
thinking about is
soon.
using
So
her
what I'm
rig
thinking
as my
about is
streaming
using
PC.
her rig as my streaming PC.
See, under that type of scenario, it would make
which-
sense, because, you're buying your wife a new computer or they're upgrading. You have a spare computer laying around. It's not going to cost you anything. And that's where I can probably see some of these streamers are at, is that they already have a machine. They got their hands on another machine. They didn't really spend anything or very little on it. And I can see that. But most of the time, honestly, it's better off just for the simplicity of it, just to go with the one machine. Because the more components you
Right.
add, the more complex it is, the more chances of failure or some other type of problem. every single component's just going to make it that much more complicated.
Or even
I don't know. I'm still
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still going
or
back
even
and
another
forth
thing
on
you
it,
could do
but-
is, since you're buying a new rig for your wife, you got one, you can always do dual streams with your wife, just, capture her camera.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but
trick
the
there is getting her
trick
to,
there is getting her
participate in
to
that.
participate in that.
Alcohol would do that.
She's not much of a gamer.
She's
I mean,
she's
I've
not
found
much
a
of a
couple games
gamer.
that she'll play
I
with
mean, I
me,
found
but
a couple
the whole
games that she'll
streaming
play
thing,
with
she's
me,
like,
but the whole streaming thing,
people
she's like,
seriously watch you play video
people
games?
seriously watch you play video games?
So my wife actually,
Like, yeah.
she doesn't go all out into the OBS, custom layouts, whole 9 yards, but she has kind of dabbled into NVIDIA's version in the GeForce experience of their streaming software,
Yeah.
and kind of just
Yeah.
throwing out there, hey, I'm playing this, if you want to watch me play, whatever. If not, it's okay.
See, that's how it begins.
See, that's
And
how
then
it
you join this
begins.
cult.
And then you join this cult
Twitch.
called
And then you're live.
Twitch.
Yep.
And then you're live.
I mean, that's where I'm at this point. I mean, initially I tried to get into a lot more dedicated streaming, but me personally, I just don't really have the time to do it between work and a lot of other things. I like to go to work, then I come home, I like to hang out with my friends and play games. I don't really have a lot of time personally to dedicate towards streaming, but nowadays, I used to use OBS. I've tried a lot of different software, and at this point, I pretty much just stream using Shadow Play or whatever they're calling it now with the new update. But I'm just not that big of a streamer. I mean, I'll load it up from time to time, and I'll show what's there, but for the most part, it's just something I do on the side at this point, so.
Right.
Yeah, me bag.
Right.
My fan is pretty loud. I actually just ordered a new CPU fan today. Something that should be much quieter, much better performance. I'm still running the stock, which I should have changed a long time ago.
Should have done the same thing with my wife's computer because she's running my old 8350 with a stock cooler on it because I didn't give her my Noctua. Yeah, I got that big boy NHD14 or DH15. If you ever seen that, it's a monster.
Yeah, which that's kind of something else I want to touch base on. We're talking about fans and coolers. Obviously, the more airflow you have through a case, the much better cooling you're going to have. Now, if you go online, sometimes you see coolers, I'll say high airflow, and some that say static air pressure. What's the difference between the two, and what would be better for what application?
Main difference is perform the high airflow. It doesn't have a lot of pressure behind it, but it can move a huge volume of air very quickly. So let's say if you're using it more, take an example, your rear fan on the back, there's really nothing in the way, there's no filters, there's just the metal mesh there. Something like that, high airflow fans would work miracles with. But on the other end, if you're running a case or a radiator or something like that, where you got really densely packed fins, a lot of stuff in the way. Most modern cases have filters on the intakes now. You got those filters, you got all the hard drive cages in there, in between that, the filters and everything else that you're trying to push air through. High airflow fans are not ideal in those situations because yes, they can move a huge volume of air. They do not have that static pressure behind it to force it through. So when it runs into something, it's basically just stopping in its tracks. And that's where you need high static pressure fans. Even though the volume is not as much, but overall you're forcing that air through and it's just not stopping the first piece of metal it hits.
Yep, that was part of the problem.
Yep, that was part of the problem.
I mean, I call it my last rig.
I mean, I call it my last
But
rig.
I had a case that
But
was
I
not
had a
good
case
for
that
airflow,
was
it
not
too
good
small,
for
and I had
airflow. It
wrong
was too
kinds of
small,
fans
and
in
I
it,
had the
so I
wrong
ran
kinds
into
of
that
fans in
where
it.
that's
So I
just,
ran into that
not
where
enough
I
air
just,
was making it through the case.
not enough air was making
Yeah.
it through the case.
But I mean, I know a lot of other people have done testing with this, and everyone has their own opinion with it. But when it comes to fans, honestly, as long as you have one intake, one exhaust, intake in the front, exhaust in the rear, 2 to 3 fans is really, honestly, all you really need. Anything beyond that is essentially the law of diminishing return at that point. You get so little benefit out of it than what you're investing into it. And the only real benefit that I personally see, because I run my system with, like I said, like 9 or 10 fans on it. The only benefit that really does for me is that I can run the fans at a lower RPM and get the same work done. So it's a quieter machine doing the same work.
Right.
That's really the only
Right.
real benefit you're going to get from it. Because the one thing that a lot of people don't understand is when it comes to cooling, especially with the cases, you can only get the components as cold as the ambient temperature in your room. If your room is at 85 degrees, Fahrenheit, your components ain't going to get any colder than that. It's going to be a little bit warmer. And so the colder the air is inside the chassis, the lower it's going to be. But if you're just recycling hot air all the time, temperatures are going to go up. So
Exactly.
Which, who was it that was
Exactly.
hooking up at their AC duct to their case?
not me.
I remember somebody.
Probably not a good thing
That's
to do.
probably not a good thing to
Cold air,
do.
but
I
you
mean,
never know what kind of
cold
shit's
air,
gonna be
but you
cold.
never know what kind of shit's
Well,
gonna be
as long as
cold
you change your
through it.
furnace filters.
I've seen people do this before, and I did it more as an experiment myself. It wasn't really an AC unit. It was more in the dead of winter with an AC duct that I put to the window, and it was going to the side panel of the case.
That's what it was.
So it was literally pulling raw cold air from the middle of winter. I think I was living in Pennsylvania at the time, so it was like -4 outside, sucking it directly into the case. But that didn't last very long. I took that down after about an hour. I just, not what I want to do. It's more of an experiment that I tried. Did it work? Yes. Would I do it? No.
Unless there was some extreme condition where you had to keep your air or your PC, ice cold.
Yeah. That's generally only going to happen if you're trying to run lava or, you're trying to overclock something with high levels of voltage, which might as well just go nitrogen at that point. That's why it's there for.
This is a weird angle to take.
This is
on
a
it,
weird
but
angle to take
I
on
will
it.
say,
I will say,
as far as streaming goes, like once you get
as far as streaming goes, like once you get a sensitive microphone, having a quiet computer is a huge blessing. Because my God, you would not believe how much background noise some of these nicer mics pick up, and I constantly struggle with that because my computer is somewhat loud. My mic picks
Yeah, no,
up
I just
all
had a
that shit.
viewer on my stream tell me, make a comment about how loud my computer is.
Yeah, that's that mighty
Right.
default AMD fan for you.
That little piece of shit that blows out top.
That's exactly what
You
it
just
is.
turn on the computer; it's already running at 100% as soon as you start it.
It sounds like a leaf blower.
It
Yeah.
sounds like a
Yeah,
leaf.
I've heard worse.
That's why I can't wait till Monday when my new one gets here.
I mean, I've got, thank God OBS has noise gate, but that only does
Yeah.
so much. I mean,
Like I said, I've
still
heard
hear
worse.
it.
It's called a Xeon cooler. Stock Intel Xeon.
This is a
random thing, and I know we've already.
this is a
done the
random thing, and I know we've
podcast,
already
but
done
I
the
had to tell
software
you about
podcast,
something,
but I had to
Reaper.
tell you about something, Reaper.
I downloaded
Um,
the program called.
I downloaded the
Voice
program
Meter. It's
called
basically a virtual
Voice
mixer.
Meter. It's basically a
Oh my
virtual
God,
mixer.
did it improve my
Oh my
audio.
God, did it improve my audio?
Now,
That
is
is
it,
an incredible little program.
That is an incredible little program.
now I remember you saying something about it, and then making a reference to the virtual audio cable.
Yes. It's
Yes.
Kind of what you have to have.
It's kind of
what
what you have to have virtual audio cables for Voice Meter to work. But I'm such a perfectionist. I was trying to get rid of all that background noise that I was talking about, and
kind of edit the way that
kind of edit the way that my voice sounds like. I mean, Voice Meter not only does it help you filter the background noise, but you can also bring out the bass or the treble in your
Yeah.
voice and that kind of thing. And it made a huge difference. It was great. I mean, it's
So basically, you
completely
can make a
free.
10-year-old boy
And it-
sound like Reaper.
Well,
Well, I wouldn't say quite to that extreme, but you can kind of set it to where it either brings out the lower tones in your voice or the higher tones, depending on what kind of sound you're going for.
just the quality of sound, and honestly,
Just the quality of sound, and honestly, I'm using a $20 microphone that I bought off of Amazon, but it sounds like it's a much more expensive mic
Right.
because of that program.
I mean, I don't know what kind of sound you're getting out of.
I mean, I don't know what
TeamSpeak,
kind
but
of
the
sound you're getting out of
that
TeamSpeak, but the
comes out
sound
on my
that
stream now
comes
is-
out on my
it's way
stream
better than what
now
it was.
is
It's
it's
not
way
perfect,
better
but
than what it
it's
was.
pretty
It's not
good.
perfect, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, I know the setting that I have this TeamSpeak set up for. It's actually running one of the higher codexes that it will run. It's not the absolute max, but it's one of the higher ones. So
Well, you sound pretty good. Yeah, I need to go in and try to play with some of the audio parts of my stream, because there's a lot of times either my game is too loud or I'm too loud or my game is just not loud enough.
Oh,
That's just going to be the rest of your life.
Yeah,
that's
that's
just
a
gonna be the
constant
rest
battle.
of your life.
Streaming or not.
Yeah.
It
I
always,
was having audio issues this morning.
I was
figured
having
out
audio issues this
earlier.
morning. I figured out earlier.
Voice meter is great, but it's
Voice
not
meter
just
is
something that you
great,
can
but it's
leave
not
running
just something that you can
overnight or
leave
something
running
and then just come back and
overnight
start
or
streaming
something and then
again,
just come back and
because
start
it makes
streaming
you
again.
sound like
Because it makes you
R2-D2
sound
and
like R2D2
maybe
and
a
C3PO got
baby
together
that
and had
can't
an
speak
illegitimate baby that
So
can't
don't do
speak
that.
English. So don't do that.
that's why, like, especially my bots, I used to run a bot on my computer all the time for my Twitch channel. And it was good for a while. I liked using it. But at the same time, there was times where I just had to restart my computer, or I had to leave my computer offline for a while, because after a while, there's just times where you have to restart your computer to reset everything. It just runs so freaking slow after a while.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like me. I'm the type of person, I don't use sleep mode. I don't use the auto monitors off. I want my monitor off, I'm going to press the button, turn it off. I want to shut it down, I'm going to shut it down. But normally my system runs 24/7, but, after I get back home from work, my kind of routine is to restart the computer. It does a lot of good, and a lot of people don't realize that. Granted, computers tend to run better if you leave them running more often, because they're designed to be powered on and running and doing something. But if you leave them on too long, it starts to bog down the system, and eventually you're just going to have to restart it.
Well, and pardon my French
Well,
here,
and
because
pardon
I
my
don't know
French
another way to
here,
say it, but
because I don't know another way to say it.
sometimes Windows services
Sometimes
like,
Windows
it basically
services
likes to shit on
it
itself.
basically
Yes.
likes to shit on itself.
A lot.
I don't know of another way to say that.
I don't know
I'm
of another way to
sorry,
say that.
Oh my
Sorry,
God.
but
Yeah, it's kind of
Oh my
like a nice little problem I had with my system the other day before I came up here to Reaper's place. Windows did some type of update with 10, and
Anniversary update.
oh fuck.
no, I've had
Windows
anniversary
updates.
update for like 3 months. I got it out before it got mainstream. I had my own issues with that with my audio software, but that's a different story. But other than that, I had an update. There's like a little, little small update that came through, and ever since then, I've been having a problem where, if I exit out of Diablo 3 or whatever game, sometimes the Windows Explorer, the Explorer EXE, basically the GUI of the entire interface, doesn't load. It's just solid black screen across 4
great,
monitors
yeah.
and a TV, and it's like, well, I can still hear TeamSpeak, I can still hear this, I could click on that, but I can't do anything. Pull the plug. And
Well, and the thing I was
Well,
pissed
and the
off
thing
about it earlier.
I was pissed off about it earlier.
This whole deal where they
This
just force
this whole deal
updates
where
on
they
you,
just
like,
force updates on
I've
you.
been putting
Like
it off and putting it off.
I've been putting it
off
off and putting it off and putting it off. This most recent update that came out, and finally my computer just said at 5:50 p.m. it's going to shut down. We don't give
Yeah.
a shit what you're doing.
I mean,
So I was like in the middle of a stream, and I had to restart my PC. Like it would not let me opt out of it or put it off. Like that had me running at an
I'm
11.
on both sides of the fence with this. With me being in the industry with this type of stuff, me as a general user, I like to update and restart when I personally have the time or feel like I should go ahead and do it. But from working within the industry and working with a lot of customers and a lot of companies and stuff, I much prefer the automated update process because it makes my job and a lot of other technicians' jobs and IT techs' jobs a lot easier. Because we know you have these updates, we know you've done this, and if all this has been done, okay, it's got to be something else. Because I don't know if you've ever called tech support before, but what's one of the first things they ask you if you get a good tech? Did you do your updates?
Oh well, and I mean, I'm an IT
and I mean
guy, too.
I'm an IT guy too.
And here's the
the-
thing.
And here's
I'm
the
on
thing,
both sides of the fence. At
I'm
the
on both
office,
sides of the fence.
all of
At
my
the
computers
office,
constantly stay
all of my
up to date.
computers constantly stay up to date.
My streaming rig.
My
I hate
streaming
it
rig,
because it
I
fucks with
hate it
OBS.
because it
Yeah.
fucks with OBS.
There was a couple of updates
Like
that came out.
there was a couple of updates that came out that basically made OBS
I
unusable.
mean, that causes
And-
a problem.
I mean that
Yeah,
causes
definitely
a problem.
understand. I mean, businesses, software does that. With my company, we're still running Windows 7. We've dabbled with 8, 8.1, and even 10, and a lot of the software that we use, it's customized software for Asus and HP, stuff like that. It's not mainstream stuff you can just go download on the internet. It's internal corporate level stuff.
Right.
and it does not work. And,
Exactly,
and you
yeah.
know, at the end of the day, no business is willing to spend hundreds of thousands, if not a couple $1,000,000, to go write a new program to get it to work.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, there's problems like that, yes. But from a technical standpoint, whenever you are, let's say, a phone tech, or you know, you're some type of repair person at a facility or anything like that, the last thing I hate seeing is when I turn on a computer and you got 347 updates sitting in there, and you're like, this could have fixed your problem.
Well, I feel you on that. Now, granted, all the software that we use at work, and I've done this on purpose because I've been there from the day we started developing our first piece of software. All of it is 100% web-based, and that's why I do it.
At the same time, though, I may not be in the technical industry, but as a user, I hold off as long as I can for those updates to install, because if they install and I find out later that that update was corrupted, or somebody that made that update fucked up and it screwed everything up, and you gotta wait a day or two for the next update to come out, at least I know I bypassed all of that just by waiting a few days or even a week for that latest update.
Basically what he's saying, my shit works now, why am I going to break it?
Yeah.
I've had that happen.
Yeah. What I do most of the time now is, unless Windows forces me to update, because the main program I'm concerned about is
Right.
OBS.
So what I normally
That's-
do is
I put it off a week or so, and I just check the OBS forums, because if a Windows 10 update breaks OBS, you're gonna see it there.
So that's normally a pretty good indication for me.
So that's normally a pretty good indication for me. If I don't see anything on the forums for 3 or 4 days, okay.
GeForce is
probably
another
safe.
one. GeForce has had so many updates where it updates, everybody's updating it, all of a sudden, you see on the forums that, hey, this update's screwing with everybody. A couple days later, they finally get another update out to fix the previous update. Well, I may wait 3 or 4 updates before I finally update, so I know that, there's a good chance I bypassed all the bullshit I got to deal with in that aspect.
One of my viewers said that
the Windows 10 anniversary update completely fucked up his computer, and he had to
I
go
see
back.
that quite often. I see it to where you use a PIN number or something, and then you update, and all of a sudden, well, it don't work anymore. PIN number's gone. Half the time you can't log in. I've seen a lot of things, like personally, even with my Asus board, my Maximus board, the Maximus 8, the audio software, the Supreme FX software for the onboard audio controller. When I got my anniversary update back when it first came out, because my system was one of the first systems to upgrade to Windows 10 when it launched. I was in the first batch of updates on launch night. And for me, I don't generally like updating that quick, but in the field that I'm in, I need to understand.
You're a
Yeah,
brave
but in the
man.
field of work that I do, I need to understand how this stuff works, because, in 3 hours when I go to work, people are going to be calling me. Or I'm going to start getting questions on
Right.
stuff on the production lines, things like this. So I have to stay up to date. I don't really have a choice. But I got that, and the way the updates work is that Microsoft can't push these updates to every system worldwide now. There's just too many systems, and the internet infrastructure can't handle it. So they roll them out in batches in a queue system. And that's why I got my update so early. I was one of the first receivers in the first queue update to get the anniversary update, in the first day anniversary when it first came out. And most people are only just now recently getting it, and I've been running it for 3 months. But I had a very big problem, even with my audio software. My Supreme FX software, it would be running, the services are there, icons in the taskbar, right? Go to open up the software, there's no GUI, the GUI's gone. Doesn't work.
Wow.
So my $200-something headset is now useless. But, because it's all analog 7.1 discrete input. So what I had to do is start rolling back the software one at a time until I got to the original software release from, I think, 2015. And now it works. A week later, Asus came out with a driver update, which also came out with the updated software package for Supreme. Guess what? Still don't work.
Jesus.
I've done reloading of the
Jesus.
OS. I've done this and that. I mean, I live this industry. I breathe this stuff, and I cannot get it to work. Some people can, some people can't. Just recently, even with HP notebooks and stuff, we've been having a lot of recent issues with the anniversary update when it comes to like the DTS audio software and stuff. It causes a lot of problems. It makes it sound like your speakers are dead. You know, they're crackling, they're, you know, doing all these weird things. Just a software glitch because the anniversary update. I mean, there's so many problems that came about with this. But, I mean, I'm still waiting for my problem to be fixed. I'd like to use the updated version of my software that's a year newer.
I think we should just make a trip.
I think
to
we
the
should just
Microsoft headquarters,
make a trip
get
to the
some picket
Microsoft
signs.
headquarters and get some picket signs and, you know, just throw a fit until they fix it.
I mean, that's effective, right?
I mean, that's effective,
It can
right?
be. I'm not flying or driving out there though. Not unless you're paying.
My angry letters aren't working.
My angry
No,
letters
those
aren't
get thrown to the mass furnace in the backyard.
Right.
They don't do that. They
Right.
just have a chute that goes from the input that the mailman throws the mail into straight into the shredder. It doesn't even hit anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I believe that's about all we have for today.
I don't know unless anyone else has questions that they want to throw up here.
My brain stopped working like 6 hours
My
ago.
brain stopped working like 6 hours ago. I'm seeing if my chat has any more questions. But
I have vodka. It's only starting.
I started drinking a long time ago, which
Did
isn't
either
anybody.
of you notice me like throwing my
Yes.
hand? Okay, just making sure. Did you notice?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right. You both your guys' eyes, like, look at me, both of you right now. Both your guys' eyes are bloodshot. Like,
That just means you're doing it right.
Right. I'm always drunk.
I don't have any alcohol in my house.
I don't have any alcohol in my house. I'm gonna have to fix that.
I think we just went out and bought too much.
Yeah, we got about 6 bottles of alcohol. I think we're
Well-
good for a while.
these
shit.
silken,
Well, shit.
whatever the fancy words are, voices, put me to sleep like 3 times. I'm going to bed.
Night.
All right.
Not too late. Are you coming to church with me tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, you drunk.
Oh, I'm not allowed within 500
Oh,
feet
I'm
of
not
church.
allowed within 500 feet of a church.
What did you
It's a
do?
long
Go hail
story.
Satan in the front yard?
Every time I go in one, I just spontaneously
Every time I go in
combust.
one, I just spontaneously combust.
That's what you say too.
Yeah, it happens to most streamers. Reaper will get there eventually.
Yeah. The Twitch community is a corrupt place.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Jesus.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Jesus.
Honestly, sometimes I, like,
Honestly,
I get online and
sometimes
I'm
I
like,
like
you know
I get
what?
online and I'm
streaming
like,
is
you know
basically
what?
just
Like
getting
streaming
in
is
front of
basically just
like
getting in front of
firing
a
squad naked,
like a
just letting them
firing
shoot you
squad
right in the
naked,
ass.
just letting them shoot you right in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, in all honesty,
I mean,
that's why I don't. I mean,
in all
that's why I
honesty,
don't play
that's why I don't.
Minecraft
I mean,
anymore.
that's why I just don't play Minecraft
Well,
anymore.
I've seen so many streamers play Minecraft that have had such toxic chat and people playing with them. I don't even. Not only do I not care to play the game, I don't care to join the community of players that play Minecraft.
Well, because you don't like hanging out with 11-year-olds.
Well, because you don't like hanging out with 11.
All that too.
Last time I played Minecraft.
Last time I played
had a bunch of guys
Minecraft,
come in and start
I had a
posting
bunch of
gay
guys
porn on
come in
Discord.
and start posting gay
I was
porn in my
seriously, like,
Discord.
you're gonna post porn in my
I was like,
Discord?
seriously, like you're gonna
That
post porn in my
good?
Discord, you're gonna
That would
post
make
that
it
kind
good?
of porn? Like,
Oh
you're not
god,
even
it's
gonna
EVE
make it
Online all
good?
over again. Run.
Right?
Say jump.
Right?
That's why I stopped playing Call of Duty. I used to play Call of Duty World at War and
Yeah.
what was the one right after that?
Bad Company, maybe?
No, not bad. It was still a Call of Duty title. It was the first Modern Warfare.
It's Battlefield.
Well, I stopped playing, but just because not only were so many hackers getting in there and just destroying the online experience, but everybody you played was 10-year-olds. And every 10-year-old knew
Yeah.
10 times more than you did. Or so they thought.
I mean, they,
Dude, they like stored
Because,
Adderall
dude,
for,
they
like,
like stored Adderall for 11 hours a day. Like, they know what you're gonna do 7 moves.
that and, you know, they came out with a handheld in their hand, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was quite the visual.
that was quite the visual. Oh.
Well, my chat is dead. Because
Well,
I'm
my
a
chat
terrible
is dead
streamer,
because
so
I'm a terrible streamer. So I'm assuming that means they don't have any questions or they're watching
Stream Overwatch.
Tim the Tatman stream
That's
Overwatch
apparently what everybody does.
because that's apparently what
Overwatch.
everybody does.
Yeah, Overwatch and what's the other one?
Rocket League.
Well, no, it was Overwatch.
And the other word I was looking for was sultry.
Sultry? Huh?
If you guys are alive tomorrow after all
If you
the
guys are
alcohol you're
alive
about to
tomorrow
consume,
after all the
I'm probably
alcohol you're about to consume, I'm probably going to play some Rocket League if y'all want to play.
Yeah, that'll
together.
work. I don't know if Stryker's going to be around, but that should be game.
Depends. I mean, I'm only about a 3-hour drive back home, so end of the day, I'm gonna, depending on how late I leave tomorrow, will determine where I get on at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't have any questions either, so I think we're going to call it for tonight, and we'll pick it up. I think I'm going to start doing this. I want to start doing it maybe during the weekends, like maybe every other Friday.
That might be good.
That might be good.
Yeah, I know what a lot of people have done, other streamers that I've talked to and I've seen, when they start trying to get around to these podcast type things, they try to keep track of how often, where are their big spikes in people watching, and they try to base it around that, because a lot of times they come join in around those times, and if it's kind of steady, then you kind of know your time slot. That's the biggest thing, is trying to find yourself a time slot to kind of get in there, in the mix of everybody else wanting to do the same thing, so...
Yeah, it's make sure time slot, the genre of game you're playing, what game you're playing, when you're playing it. I mean, it's just so many variables to be a streamer that it's mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm.
The way I'm trying to keep looking at it,
way I'm trying to keep looking at it, and it's working well for my morale, is that I have a couple of people that show up sometimes, and that's
Hey,
amazing.
when you get a couple people that are familiars, even if it's just one person repeating, even if it's yourself on another screen,
Yeah,
it feels good.
Yeah, I mean,
there's
there's more than one person in the world that somewhat enjoys watching me play video games.
It's
I'm
like
gonna
with
take
me.
that as a victory.
Like I said, I don't really get into more of the hardcore streaming anymore. I'm more, casual at this point in time. But overall, I mean, even if I get one person that wants to sit in my channel for, more than 10 minutes and deal with me and the rest of my team speak bantering on for an hour, I'm happy.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
way to.
That's a good way to approach it,
especially
because
if you're.
especially
so
if you're so if you're banking on, you always want a certain amount of viewers, or you're just trying to monetize streaming and all that. My God, your life.
Oh,
is
you
gonna
might as well just
suck
take
for a
on
while.
3 jobs at that point, and you still may not succeed.
Yeah,
And there's no guarantee that it'll ever happen.
and there's no guarantee that
Mhm.
it'll ever happen for you. But if it does, it's gonna be. It's gonna take. It's gonna take a long time.
That's why
And so
I
it's
look
gonna
at
be a
it.
long time
If
for
if
you.
I look at my viewer count and I see one viewer on my channel, and I got that one viewer that's just sticking around, he's being
Kind of a lurker.
hey, I don't mind lurkers at all.
Lurkers, man. You know what?
Exactly.
You guys
But
lurk
if I got
away.
that one person on the channel that's sticking around and watching me all the time, I consider that a victory. I'm doing something right. At some point or another, maybe another person do the same thing, and then another, then another.
Then you get me there with the multi-Twitch up and running with about 14 channels simultaneously.
I know that feel. Oh my god.
I know that feel.
I cannot get my computer to run more than eight channels at a time. If I try to run more than 8, then none of them will load.
I'll be sitting there.
Y'all know what that limit
I
is.
like
So
how
I'd
y'all
be sitting
know
there
what
at
that
like
limit is.
14 is about as far as I could push my system with my internet at home, while playing the game online, while streaming, while my wife is on another online game, and then she's doing her thing with TeamSpeak running on both. It was like, well, how much more can we push this before it breaks?
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, no shit.
But it's rare when I push those type of levels. Normally, if I got that many streams open up on a multi-screen type deal, it's really all I'm doing is just watching all the different things. It's like, who's more interesting at this next 10 seconds?
Actually, it's now that you mention how much internet that we're using. I've actually heard about a lot of the the bigger cities, the internet companies are starting to charge kind of like the cell phone plans. You get a certain block of data that you can use. It's not 3 or 6 megs. It could be 300 or going on.
Unfortunately, it
I
sucks.
have that. Unfortunately, it sucks.
I have 250 gigabytes of data.
I have 250
And then
gigabytes
after
of
that,
data.
you start getting charged per gigabyte or whatever.
Oh God, 200 something for the month.
Yep.
I would burn that up in a couple of days.
No shit.
It's hard sometimes.
It's
they want
hard
you to either,
sometimes.
I think it's
They
like
want
10
you to
bucks
either,
or
I think it's
something
like 10
per 100
bucks or
gigs.
something per 100
So,
gigs.
I mean, I don't, believe it or not, I
So
don't go
I mean, I
over
don't
it
believe it or not, I
all that
don't go
often.
over
They
it
just keep, like, wanting
all
you-
that
they'll tell
often,
you,
but they
like,
just
oh,
keep
you
like
pay an
wanting you.
extra
They'll tell you like,
$25 a
oh,
month,
you
and
can pay an
we'll
extra
give you
$25 a
400
month,
gigabytes
and we'll
of
give you
data.
400 gigabytes of data.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah, my
you.
Verizon phone bill does kind of the opposite. It says, hey, you've used 45% of your data this month. You got 3 days left. Pay more money for more data. It's like, wait, what?
Why would I pay more if I'm only using half what I
Right.
got?
Yeah, that's kind of a.
But yeah, but at least with the internet that I have, I mean, it's not the best internet. I live literally right across the river from Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, it's not that great, but here recently we just got that big bump in performance that everyone's doing now. And that made a world of difference.
Yeah,
Luckily for me, I don't have a data cap with the company I go through. But the downside is that I can't really fully use the internet speed that's provided. Because once I get to a certain point, it just kind of goes, yeah, I just don't want to work no more. But other than that, it's fine for what I do. Because with the data caps, I've dealt with them in the past. It's a real pain. I mean, especially when you're reaching that limit and there's that game you want to download. You can't do it. But
And a lot of companies now are starting to head towards that because they realize then, hey, we can milk more money off these people that are using so much more, internet usage per month. Because
All I can
we're
think about right now is that
All I
South
can
Park
think about
episode
right
where the
now
cable
is that
company
South
guys
Park
are just
episode
rubbing
where the
their
cable
nipples.
company and the guys are just rubbing their nipples.
That's all.
That's all.
just don't show it. You get me banned.
But yeah, I mean, it's like with mine. I looked at the
For real.
data usage on my computer because Windows 10 tracks that now that you can go and look kind of like your cell phone does. And it's the first time I've looked at it in a long time. Netflix alone in the last 30 days, 489 gigs.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's what started this whole thing.
Yeah.
That's why we go over.
I'm pretty sure that's why we go over. Is my
Mhm.
wife loves.
And that's what
Netflix.
started this whole thing.
She's like, I watched like 2 seasons of
Grey's
Grey's Anatomy today. Well, Jesus, no wonder our internet
Well, the biggest
is
thing
going
is
over.
Netflix. Their user base is so high that the company that they're paying basically to stream their services basically told them, look, either we got to figure something out or we're not going to provide with you anymore because you're overloading our servers. So we're like, okay, Netflix said, fine, we'll
Yeah.
pay you more money
Yeah.
to be able to upgrade your servers or whatever to be able to handle our traffic. Well, then I suddenly thought, well, hey, they're using more traffic and they're paying us more. Well, now the internet companies are getting wind of this, so they're thinking, okay, the people that are using more traffic, we can charge them more because if we don't, then they're just going to suck out all the traffic that everybody else is taking. Why don't we charge them more? They'll pay more because they need it, and we'll make more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if we currently have no data cap here, and I hope we never will. But we'll see in the future.
Yeah,
Right.
everything's in the air.
Right. I mean it.
Yeah. I mean, the data cap sometimes.
Yeah. I mean
it's a pain
the
in
data
ass
cap
and it
sometimes.
sucks, but
Yeah, it's a
not-
pain in the ass and it sucks, but
I
it's
don't know,
not.
It's not a constant.
I don't know.
Problem.
It's not a
It's not like I'm
constant
sitting there constantly
problem. It's
monitoring
not
my
like
data
I'm
going,
sitting
oh,
there
crap,
constantly
oh, crap,
monitoring my data going,
Yeah, I
oh crap,
mean-
oh crap, am I gonna go over? Because I've never had to pay more than like $10 extra. I
Yeah,
mean,
from what
okay,
I've seen with the
$10.
majority of the companies, it's all based off your general region, the area that you're in. Most of the time they get it right, but sometimes they get it wrong. Because if you go to different areas, the data caps are different. Even with the same company, the data caps can be different across different areas.
Yeah.
Because generally what they do is they look at the general
Right.
average of what people are using in their area. They have that data. They're the ones giving you the data. So they know what the general consumption is in the area. And basically that's more or less where they put that line. They bump it up a little bit more to give you some headroom. And the people who exceed that are the ones that are above the general population. So those are generally ones that are going to have to pay more money if they want it. Granted, they're also probably the ones torrenting a bunch of stuff too. Kind of goes hand in hand.
Right.
So there's the that's Comcast, AT&T, get their
Yeah, I
monopoly.
mean, it's, you know.
So I don't know much about Comcast or AT&T. I know.
Oh, God, I used to work for Comcast.
Oh,
I know
God,
recently
used to work for
said
Comcast.
get my provider through.
Hey, would
Hi.
you mind taking a break and pulling out the futon before you guys forget?
Yeah,
Mhm.
give me just a few minutes to finish this conversation. I have no idea what I was talking about.
Back to Comcast and AT&T and them. Data
Right.
rate caps. And
Never mind. I just completely lost my train of thought.
My provider, it's a company called
My
Sun.
provider, it's a
It's
company
a
called
decently
Sudden.
large company.
It's a decently large company.
They're not great, but they could be.
They're
much
not
worse.
great, but they could be much worse.
The service is pretty damn
The
reliable.
the service
I'll give them that.
is
I mean,
pretty
the
damn
only
reliable. I'll
issues
give them
I have
that.
is
I mean, the
customer
only
service
issues that I
wise,
have is
but,
customer
yeah,
service
fine.
wise.
yeah.
But
I mean, I run Time Warner in my area. Used to be Insight, and then they got bought out, and now AT&T and Comcast are fighting to buy them out in our area too. So
Oh, good.
oh,
Yeah.
So
good.
we got was it Spectrum?
Time Warner Spectrum, yeah.
That's buying out our Time Warner. So hasn't happened yet, but we'll see what happens with that.
Well, no,
Although
they have bought them out.
They did buy them out.
Yeah, it's just known as Time Warner Spectrum now.
Yeah, so it's like collaboration. But I do know that
Basically putting a different color.
That's like basically
bow on
putting a
piece of
different
shit
colored
and
bow on a
trying
piece
to
of
say
shit
different.
and
Yeah.
like
I
trying
do
to
know
say
over the
it's different.
over the next maybe year or two, they plan on upgrading our internet from like right now I got a package of 50 down, 5 up to
It's the
what was it 150,
300. Yeah.
300 down,
But it's
and
supposed to be starting come December. It's coming through Ohio in December.
yeah, coming through Ohio it doesn't mean it's actually gonna be here.
I know.
See, I run 100 down and 10 up.
See, I run 100 down and 10 up, and that's been great.
yeah, because I know when they upgraded our service down where I live, when they bought them out inside out and went over to Time Warner, here in the last, I think about 7-8 months ago, they finally bumped up our speeds. I went from running 20 down, 2 up to running 150 down, 20 up. That made me happy.
Oh, yeah.
And you're paying the same
yeah.
price.
Yes, same price.
Oh, God. Wolf. White Wolf?
Oh
He's
God,
running 300
Wolf,
over
White
30.
Wolf,
Good
he's
God.
running 300 over 30. Good God.
I'm not saying don't stream. I'm just saying please don't be
I mean,
still on stream.
I would never use
I mean,
that kind of speed.
I would
for
never
anything,
use that
really,
kind of
that I could
speed
think
for
of.
anything, really, that I could think of.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part.
Wolf is running 300 down. 30
Wolf is
up.
running
I don't,
300 down, 30 up. I don't,
know what I would ever use that
I don't
kind of
know
speed
what
for.
I would ever use that
I know
kind
what
of
I would
speed
use it
So,
for.
yeah,
That's
but, oh my
I mean,
God.
that's
I know what I
nice. Oh,
use
yeah,
it for.
but, oh my
That's called my
God.
game server. It runs a 500 down, 500 up direct dedicated line.
Oh, well, okay. Not all of us
Oh,
are
well,
trying to run NASA
okay.
in our
Not
spare
all of us are trying to run
Well, I'm
NASA
trying to
in our
run like
spare
6 ARC
bedrooms.
servers and a few other things off this rig, so.
Or you
But
know,
it's located in a data center, so.
or you know, worst case scenario, high quality porn.
We just have 2
And a
computers and a
tablet.
couple
Like,
cell
we don't need
phones and
that.
a tablet. Like, we don't need that.
For the longest time, I didn't have cable, so pretty much everybody in the house. I have 2 TVs plus 2 computers, a laptop, tablets, everything. Pretty much all running Netflix, Hulu, all the video streaming services. So you know, I pretty much suck in a lot of data.
I just use quality of service on my router.
I just use quality of service on my router and give my computer everything.
Yeah, it's like with my router at home. I don't use the crap that they give me from the ISP, but I have a $280 smart AC router, and yeah, and put it this way, the only thing that runs out the Wi-Fi is my cell phone. So, but mostly the reason why I got it is because of the QoS in it. It is, you know, it's not corporate level, but it's actually one of the better ones that I've seen. for the one that I'm using. And what I like
Really?
is that I can actually not only put specific hardware, but even programs into the QoS.
Yeah.
So what I do is that
Yeah.
I set my main rig and my wife's computer on the QoS as the primary hardware in the house. And then from there, like TeamSpeak and a couple of very, very specific software that we always use that requires data also go on that list. And then I can also set what is the maximum limit of what my upload and download is. And then it actually separates it accordingly depending on who's dynamically and who needs it the most at the time.
That makes sense. That's nice. I mean,
That makes
kinda what
sense.
I
That's
have set up.
nice. I mean,
wouldn't say
that's
it's
that's
that
kind of what I have
advanced
set
because
up. I wouldn't say it's that advanced because I don't think ours really
but
needs to
I
be.
bought
But I
a
bought
Netgear router with tomato
a
firmware
Netgear
on it,
router
and
with tomato
quality of
firmware
service
on it,
within
and
that firmware,
quality of
like
service
the
within that
settings and stuff
firmware,
that it gives you to
like the
tweak
settings
is
and stuff
pretty
like that that it
Yeah.
gives you to tweak.
I mean, to
is
kind of
pretty-
give you an
pretty
idea
good.
of why I have something that has that level of control is because you got to keep in mind, you got me and my wife who are both gamers. She streams off and on, I stream off and on. I mean, we got Ubisoft launcher running, we got Origin and Steam and Blizzard, Battle.net and everything. We got all this stuff running. All these things are downloading. And if I'm playing an online game, Blizzard wants to start updating World of Warcraft or Diablo or whatever game it wants to do. And then all of a sudden I'm streaming, and then she's streaming, and then her Steam wants to download something. Yeah, I need that.
Right.
You got to control that beast.
Right. Yeah, we don't
Most
quite run it
stress
like
we
the
put on it is
most
sometimes
stress we
my
put on
wife
it
will play
is
video games with me
sometimes
when I
my
stream.
wife will play
Like,
video games
that's-
with me when I
that's
stream.
max.
Like
Oh.
that's
And then to
that's
top it
max-
off, we're both
maxing
watching
out.
YouTube at the same time on different machines, and then maybe Netflix is paused on the TV.
Yeah,
So-
see, no, we're not doing all that. It's just us and dogs, and the dogs.
So
haven't
that's
figured out
more
how
on
to
the
use Netflix
extreme
yet.
side of what maybe once a week you'll get like that. But that's why I had to pick up a router that had that level of capability, because when I'm doing all this stuff, especially if I'm trying to stream or something, I don't want 3 different type of game clients across 2 computers downloading and updating at the same time and affecting everything in the house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean,
I definitely see the need for it. It's just
I definitely see the need
I
for
don't
it.
have
It's
the need
just
for it.
Yeah, it
I
really
don't
comes
have the
down
heat
to
for it.
what you need personally. I mean, if you're not personally experiencing a problem or having any side effects from it when you stream or anything, then okay, there's really no need for it. But let's say you were to get to the point to where it was starting to affect your streaming, you may have to look into something like that. So, but
Oh, yeah.
stuff like with that level of firmware,
I'd
it's going
QoS
to
the
cost you
shit out
though.
of that.
Yeah, 'cause I got Linksys router, and I like Linksys for the hardware aspect of it. Their firmware sucks. Like I'll set up the QoS
Oh fuck yeah, it does.
because if I'm streaming or playing a game and my wife decides to download a game on Steam, she sucks all my internet away from me. I mean, I have no bandwidth at all.
Yep.
Even if I do set up the QoS for it, she still is able to steal all my bandwidth.
Hmm.
Here's my. I'm curious what you.
Here's
what
my.
you guys think
I'm
about
curious
this.
what
My-
what you guys think
from my
about this.
experience, I think the best.
From my
I guess,
experience,
if
I
you're
think
looking
the
for a
best,
really,
I guess,
a
if you're
nice
looking for a really,
cost-effective router,
I guess, a nice
I like
cost-effective
Belkin
router,
for just
I
your
like Belkin
everyday at-home
for
router.
just your everyday at-home router.
Belkin's pretty good. I haven't really had many problems with them over the years.
And I mean, that's I'm saying that.
And I
for
mean,
somebody
I'm saying that for somebody
running
that's,
a couple computers that isn't really
running a couple
doing
computers
too
that
much,
isn't
or
really
doesn't really
doing
have the
too
need
much,
for
or
advanced
that doesn't
QoS
really
settings
have
or
the
anything
need
like
for
that.
advanced QoS
I mean,
settings or
cost-wise,
anything
I
like that.
think Belkin and Netgear is kind of neck and neck. Preferably, I'd go with Netgear if you're looking for a more cost-effective approach.
Yeah.
Linksys
There is
is
one thing,
50-50 when you buy it.
There is one thing though.
Yeah, but
That's crazy that may matter to
That's
some people. You
crazy that
cannot
may matter to some people. You
run a
cannot
Minecraft server with a Belkin
run a
router,
Minecraft server with a Belkin router
yeah, I can see that.
'cause it like
because
I wrestled with this for
like
hours when
I
had my
wrestled with
Belkin.
this for hours
It
when I had my
won't-
Belkin.
the
It
outgoing
won't
port
the
that you need
outgoing
server to
port
communicate on, Belkin
that you
just,
need the server to communicate on. Belkin just nope.
So I know with Linksys, a lot of the older routers, people have been able to make third-party firmware that you can install on there, and it's actually pretty good.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did with my Netgear.
Yeah.
That
Well,
Tomato
that's what I did
firmware
with
is
my
a third-party
Netgear. That,
firmware.
that Tomato firmware is a third-party firmware,
And I like it.
I like it. It's
Lots of
got
little
lots
bells
of
and whistles, and that
lots of
makes
little
me
bells
happy.
and whistles,
Yeah.
and that makes me happy. But
I think I need to go
I
ahead
think
and
I
sign
need to
off.
go
My dogs are
ahead
looking at me
and sign
cross-legged.
off. My dogs are looking at me cross-legged. They need to go
I feel
out.
bad because I normally take them out like right at
I feel
9
bad
o'clock,
because I normally
and
take them
it's
out like
15
right at 9
after, so they're
o'clock,
like,
and
"Dude,
it's
what the fuck?"
15 and after, so they're like, dude, what the fuck?
Alright, yeah, I need to get going to it. It's actually supposed to be my off day, but I don't want to throw us in here since I haven't had a chance to do it yet.
Dude, you're a streamer. You don't have off days.
Dude, you're a
That
streamer.
is
You
true.
don't have off days.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. This was a lot
All
of
right,
fun.
well, thanks, guys. This was
I
a
like
lot of fun.
talking to people
Uh,
that have
I like
technical knowledge.
talking to
It makes
people
me
that
happy.
have technical knowledge.
Yeah,
It
usually when
makes
I
me
have
happy.
an issue, the first person we talk to is Stryker.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know your shit, man.
yeah.
You know how
You know
that
your
is.
shit,
It's hard
man.
for an IT guy to
You know
say
how
to
that is. It's
somebody,
hard
but
for
you
an
know
IT
your
guy to
shit.
say
Actually,
that to
just
somebody,
disappeared.
but you know your shit.
Oh, did he?
Oh, did he?
Cool. All right. Well, thanks. That was a
Cool.
lot
All
of fun.
right, well, thanks. That was
Yes, it
a
was.
lot of fun.
Have a good one.
Alright, take it easy.
Have a good one.
Alright, that went tonight's stream. I will be back probably tomorrow, roughly 8:30. Whether Stryker will be there or not, I don't know. I'm sure he'll be playing some games with me, regardless of where he is. But we're going to sign off for now, and I will talk to you guys more likely tomorrow, if not Monday, or not Monday, Wednesday. So until then, have a good night. See you guys later.